about to try and summarize where I felt like the consensus of the room was last week.
Oh, good for
or
you.
2 weeks ago when we met. So you can help too. So it seemed like we had coalesced on this idea of a kind of a two-pronged purpose for existence. One would be a think tank-like organization that helps foster thought, and then another was more action-oriented, where we would stimulate others to take action with some of the thoughts that we had. And the method for really starting to build that was through a series of design shops around specific areas that we kind of came out of our design shop with. So affordable housing, health, education, and the like. So let's see, where else did we go with that? We kind of asked what the key question was. One of the key questions was, what sets us apart from other like organizations that are tackling these topics? And some of the broad themes from that were that we provide kind of a cross-section of different thoughts and backgrounds and everything, but that we would be the sort of the bringing together mechanism for, let's take transportation for instance. You've got lots of different groups working on transportation, but we might be the mechanism for them to come together in an outside-the-box planning process to approach the system in a different way. Let's see, what else? Anything to add? What am I missing?
Well, so a lot of question around what do you do next?
Organization.
And several different groups reported that they thought it would make sense to have a presentation that people could show to others to say, here's what we did, and what do you think, and how much you want to participate.
And raise money.
And raise money, yeah.
To fund a series of design shops around specific areas. So I think that's, in a nutshell, where we are. Am I missing anything?
Yeah, we talked about a couple of quick wins and some PR.
Yeah.
I do think one of the first questions we will get when we start talking to a larger audience is, how are we different from Nashville Next?
Yeah.
There are a lot of different movements in the city right now that are touching on different ones of these areas, which is good, right? I don't think we're saying that Future Ready is trying to be anybody's be-all and end-all, except perhaps with the systems thinking approach to all of this. But I do think we're going to have to help people who've already heard of different pieces of the landscape, whether it's NOAA or Nashville Unites or Nashville Next or Nashville's Agenda, or we can keep going. If they've heard of one or more of those, where do we fit into that universe is a question that they're going to have.
That's where I think it comes back to us being the one arm driving the conversations or instigating the conversations to happen in a different way, more of a strategic planning type way rather than just advocacy. And then I think the other side of it is that we're not committed to any one project. It's really about.
Well, part of what we're saying is that this is about intentionality, right? That I think most of those other things I just named are about responding to particular needs in the community, and that's part of what we've done here. But the other part of what we've started to do is to say, more than anything, it matters that we're intentional about where we're going.
Yeah.
If I'm hearing something.
And if you talk about Nashville Next, that was largely an information gathering, feedback gathering effort, which would wind up with a policy proposals to the council, but it doesn't have a specific planning. Yeah, it doesn't have a planning component to it where how do you make plans to take that feedback and turn it towards action. So, and NOAA is largely about it seems to be about community advocacy, and again, back to policy making, not necessarily that gap between policy and what actually happens. And I see us, at least, as being the facilitators of the initial conversations, which become essentially a strategic plan, a systems-based strategic plan for where we go from here to action, leading to action.
Yeah, another thing that makes us different is that we're completely neutral. We don't, nobody comes in and says, okay, I'm going to hijack this conversation and it's going to be all about my deal. And we're not government, we're not business, we're not nonprofit, we're just a diverse group of people with no real action right now.
Well, we've each got our axes, but that's not what this is about.
That's
You know?
exactly.
I mean,
it.
I think one of the beautiful things about the education work that we did was there you had pro-charter people, anti-charter people, people who hope they never hear the word charter again, all in one group who were able to come to something that is still about how to improve Nashville's education without the political side of it that most other conversations seem to have. So I think there was a lot of transcending those traditional lines in our work, which is awesome.
So, in terms of where we go from here and organizing next steps, it sounds like we've got some kind of presentation to create. We've got, I'm gonna write this down real quick. We've got to get some kind of fundraising effort organized. A sharing effort, so that's spreading the word about what we've done, and especially the people who we think would need to participate in future design shops. And for the purposes of fundraising, I do think we need to be able to kind of outline our plan for at least whether it's the first topic that we tackle or the first 3 topics that we tackle. At least have some kind of an idea for how we want to move it forward.
The structure,
Loosely.
loosely structured.
Yeah, loose structure.
On the fundraising side, before we did the design shop, I went to most of the foundation heads in town and said, hey, we're about to do this, and next spring we'll come back and tell you what we did and the kinds of things that we want to do. And as far as the leadership lodge is concerned, we can put 100% of our fundraising effort into doing design shops. We don't have to have a separate effort for operations or capital or whatever. That's our thing or direction.
What was the response from the foundations?
It was very different. It just kind of like Kathy, wow, this is amazing. And Kathy versus Warren, the same thing. People are a little more measured. The people from the Memorial Foundation were inscrutable. So it was just different. Everybody was very
Well, did
different.
you get any signals that, if you guys gathered this kind of group, we could
No. Overall, the signals are pretty good. The difficulty in Nashville fundraising is that almost all of the major foundations are sort of common carriers, in that they just kind of take the attitude that if you have 501c3 and you're pretty good guys, and you come and ask us, then we're going to support you. And so it's really hard to get an extraordinary level of commitment or sort of above and beyond the okay, yeah, well, so we put you in for 20 grand, it goes to a certain size and gas nicely and like that. So that's a hard thing to find a really passionate folks that are willing to step up and do something a little different.
Well, but, you know, the folks you mentioned to me, Kathy and Khaki are the two who are going to give you that kind of, if they believe it, right? They're not gonna just blow smoke at you. but
Exactly, yeah. They're both,
That's how they interact with the world at large, so.
yeah, they both were really excited. And I think the HCA is probably a pretty good possibility as well, in terms of doing something special. And then somebody like the chamber.
I've mentioned it to the chamber a little bit about what we're doing, and they love the concept of inclusive urbanization. I was talking to a couple of the policy people on the side.
And Ralph is very fired up about the notion of it.
This is what you all sent out last week.
Yeah.
You know, forget about that, my fingers on it. I mean, we do have some very activist groups, inclusive urbanization being one of them. I mean, I think we have people here say, I don't care what you do, we're doing this.
Right.
And I think we could expect over time things like that to continually bubble up. So a work group may have discussions and not go very far. Other work groups may turn into their own project. But at least I got a sense that we want the umbrella to include all of those possibilities. The think tank, the discussion that turns into an active work group with people that are inspired, passionate, and want to go out and change with action, not just with policy.
So, yeah, I think we've recapped that last meeting pretty well. It's what I'm reading up there right now. So, I think we're to the point of asking who's involved in what. So, presentation. We can do. I'm looking at the two people in here who make a living presenting things.
Oh, this is not really fair.
It is what it is. I would really like to work on a presentation.
So would I. I mean, I'm good with concepts, not necessarily the art piece of it.
Well, me too, so. So they probably only need one of us.
Not very
That's, well, but that's the part that I think is, if we get the story and the concepts right, then I think part of the way we express that to other people is going to be through the visuals. It's not, you know, we're not going to get enough people to read this piece of paper or that. We need something that can be literally in a slideshow, you know, as much as we all love hate those, because that's part of the language of the people we want to talk to.
And I was thinking voiceover when I worked.
Oh, yeah, you said
when
that.
I wrote this, yeah.
The video, a slideshow.
Yeah, I think for presentation purposes, we've got to be able to get, I think we need this, but we also have to be able to say this really quickly. I think we've got to be able to say, it's that distinguishing, differentiating factor that we have to be able to say very quickly, this is what we are and why you need to invest in us, whether it's time or money or whatever it is.
Elevator speech.
Yeah.
Can I show something?
Yeah, please show something.
Because this is just through my filter.
This is a good filter, so yes.
Let's see, can I get online through this? And this is on the wire for sound. All right.
Oh, we're going to see the heavy funds here.
Well, so I'm going to speak words without thinking through my thoughts, so that forgive my stammering. So in this piece, there's a lot of positioning the problem, and the problem is not one problem, it's the overlapping systems that are inspired by too much growth. And then at the end is this call to action, and I see the call to action not as this targeted, like, attack this problem. It's more of this open up to all the overlaying systems and broaden the conversation as each person or advocacy group attacks the problem that they're focused on, whether it's transportation, education, immigration. Invite other people into the discussion of, you know, whatever boulder you're pushing against. So part of that is illuminating the trends for Nashville beyond just growth. So this is an example of something similar that we did, where the problem is they needed to raise awareness of the reality of the trends of women, especially single women in California, and the pressures on them. And we used scribing to do that. So they're once again, I'm talking while thinking. So there's the, like, getting people up to speed as to why Future Ready Nashville happened. Then there's the outcome of that event. And then there's the invitation to continue work or conversation. So let me just play this and see if it brings any of this here.
It should be. Oh.
Here, slightly.
Guess what? Even
All right.
though California,
Okay.
guess what? Even though California is the 9th largest economy in the world, it has the highest poverty rate in the United States. That's right. 1 in 3 single moms is struggling to make ends meet and take care of her children. A mom of 2 needs about $5,400 to pay rent, afford child care, buy food, and have a little left over for just in case. However, if she works a minimum wage job, that mom makes only $1,300 per month. That's barely enough for rent. So what can help? Well, tools like subsidized child care, cash assistance, job training, and higher education that helps her get a job that pays enough so she can make it on her own. But why aren't these tools helping? It was the 1-2 punch of the Great Recession and state budget cuts. Starting in 2008, the economy shed millions of jobs, throwing families on hard times. At the same time, California cut life-saving programs that help families survive a financial crisis. We can change that. The Women's Foundation of California is making gains through grant making and policy advocacy to create good jobs and invest in programs like childcare. We can improve women's lives. This year alone, we helped pass 4 new laws. We funded 74 women's groups, and we trained 35 women in public policy. But we have to step it up. Donate now. Your gift helps to make sure that every woman has enough to live in a safe place, send her kids to college, and save a little for emergencies. Only then will Californians have more than the largest economy in the United States. We'll have an economy that works for all of us. To learn more about the Women's Foundation of California, tell others, and make a gift that helps low-income women and children, go to www.womensfoundca.org. Your voice and gift matters.
So this follows a story arc, in which it's like the story up till now. You know, you may be aware of this, but did you know this? Isn't that shocking? that gave birth to the foundation has accomplished this, but there's a lot more to do. This is what we want to do. Here's the call to action. Donate because we want to do that. And then here's the easy way to do it.
Yeah.
So this, you can take that same narrative and put in, Nashville's going great guns and is the it city, which means we're growing, which means these problems, this problem. Did you know that in Nashville, 1 out of 4 kids in elementary school goes to bed hungry?
Yeah.
That 1 million people are going to be moving to this city that has almost no public transport, whatever the did you know parts are. And then we gathered people together to talk about all these overlaying systems. We call it Future Ready Nashville. Here's the outcome from that. Inclusive urbanization. So that's like the big idea. Here's what we want to do. Here's where we need your help. Here's how to get started. So that's how my brain works.
So that's how you just wrote the whole thing.
Important in that, and the reason I can do that is every day we get calls by people to do this, and I ask them, why are you doing this? And they're like, we don't know. So I have to ask all these questions to get them to tell me, why are you doing this, and why is it important, and what are you trying to do? So the key question for everybody that was part of Future Ready Nashville is, what are we trying to do, and what are we willing to do? And that's where I'm a little nebulous, and I know that everybody is, the box has been turned over and the kittens have scattered, so it's...
Well, some of the kittens have gotten back together.
Yes.
I think what we've all kind of said is that was an amazing process. The rest of the city leaders who weren't there need to be there and go through a process like that. And through that, it needs to have an action-oriented arm that stimulates pilot projects or side projects or whatever the case may be. But to get people out of being zoomed in on one specific problem or one approach to one specific problem and consider other approaches that are outside the system.
So right there, that's here's what we intend, and then right after that is, we need your help in order to put on these inclusive design sessions, these design shops, to bring more people in. So that's a concrete thing that you can go to funders for. So if it follows that arc, that's something that I can help make happen.
So I came to the design shop because Renata Soto asked me if I would come be her guest at the design shop. I think that's the other thing that we're asking people to do besides raising money is we're recruiting for future design shops and getting people bought in to wanting to do it.
To me, the message is not raise money.
Well, it has to be a message for some people right now so that we can...
Right, that's a strategy we have to have to continue, but that's not the message. The message to me is there's something going on that you're going to be interested in, and you need to join the conversation. We need to make it attractive to people, just like the original design shop was attractive to people. And we need to say, we need to be showing pictures of who was involved, who was there the first time. We need to say, we need to invite them to join this conversation so you can be part of the civil engagement and try to assure a mindful transformation of our city. You need to become part of a work group that can be action, or you can be part of a conversation that continues over the years that work groups emerge out of. And that we take that message, and that's what we say to somebody and say, now, what we need some money. To make some money to do the design shops, because the design shops are important. And we don't even have to call it a design shop. It's a conversation, but we can present the images that show what the design shop look like. This is the conversation you're joining. It's people around tables, it's people up talking, it's all kinds of this cool stuff that's been written on these boards.
I do think there's some value in stating what the design shop, that it's a world-renowned or highly effective.
Yeah, it's social proof there.
Yeah.
So it's used by Fortune 500 companies to accelerate massive
Highly
IT
complex
projects and the World Economic Forum for resolving.
Yeah. I would say that's a second one. I think if you try to put too much into these,
Right.
We have to put the people we serve into, those individuals are carrying more weight than us, than what we look like and what we're doing in the design shop. But like, if we're trying to like pick education and have folks do that, we're gonna pick affordable housing and have folks working on that, or bringing the conversation in, or transportation, whichever committees, I think.
Which is, has all sorts of other names, constituents, stakeholders. Yeah.
So, did you guys just volunteer to create,
Yeah,
create a draft of something?
Yeah, I can help with that. We met earlier or last week and went over the route from this, and I'd like to take a crack at this from a voiceover standpoint.
Is this what you sent out last week?
It's another
Iteration.
iteration, yeah.
Iteration. What's the holding body if somebody says, great, where do I make the check out to? Is that going to be the Leadership Lodge? Is it
Probably the Leadership Lodge. You guys, yeah, I mean, we've already got the 501c3.
It has to be
Makes
for
sense.
now.
What's that?
It has to be Leadership Lodge for now.
Yeah, so.
I forgot that. Are you? So you're a registered non-profit?
Yeah,
Non-for-profit?
totally, yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah. So, and then
I see Future Ready Nashville as being an initiative of the Leadership Lodge.
absolutely.
So, it's not its own
Like where that sounds
thing.
like.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think we could take this, and it needs to be a little bit more direct, a little bit more kind of clear from a definition standpoint. Who is it? What are we talking about? What do they do? Answer some very simple things. And I think it's going to be important that we identify visually who some of these folks are, and that we send people to this website as well, where there's a transparency of what happened, follow-up meetings, how are things evolving, so we can also send someone to get more information somewhere, so that everything doesn't have to be contained in what might be a 2-minute piece.
Right.
These things should be designed to generate a certain action. And the action is to do something. We need to figure what that is. If we're trying to just get them to go to the website, are we trying to actually get them to sign up for a meeting or a design shop? I think if we don't have something for them to do that results in satisfying their curiosity, we lose them. To do this because we just have the energy now won't help. We create the best 2 minutes we got, but there's nothing to follow up or nothing to do once you send it out. It lacks the necessary ingredients for momentum.
Right. And
Got to have something to do.
Maybe a survey or something, like where your interests lie.
well, that's
What are you
might
most
be
passionate
part of
about?
it, but I think what Mac was talking about is it needs to be a real focused ask. So events are good. So if we're like, we're gearing up for the May 15th design shop to address poverty and transportation, or whatever the section of inclusive urbanization is. We have these 5 awesome people who are going to be there, and we're trying to raise money to have a design shop so that we ensure that we have 50 awesome people.
Yeah, you know,
That's an event.
yeah, it seems like we should admit where we are too, which is nowhere.
Yeah.
And I think that there is a next step. There was a design shop, there's been some follow-up, and I think the next step is to try to do what we're doing, define it, invite others to find out. And they're not going to get satisfactory information or inspiration just from seeing something we send out. I think the ask should be like to an event. It can happen at the Leadership Lodge. It's open to anybody who wants to come, and what we do is say, here's where we are right now. You're here because we want you involved. We target some people. We also send it to anybody who wants it to move it and share it and try to generate an additional number of people. And that can be they can include some kind of presentation from the current work groups. Here's where education was, here's where inclusive urbanization was, here's where healthcare was, here's where transportation was, to generate more excitement around those things, to see what conversations are missing, and to try to reach out to some people who are the ones we would like to serve so that they're there as well. Generate something that forces us to move forward, forces us to articulate it in detail, forces us to show off the design shop. Not that we do one, but we talk about it, we have someone discuss it or define it, or we show pictures of it, whatever it is, without going to the expense of doing it. It lasts, 2 or 3 hours.
And then who's the audience that we're trying to influence most?
Yeah, I think that's another fabulous
Because
question.
I'm not familiar with how the city runs at all. I just see all these apartment buildings going up.
I almost think there's 2 deliverables that we have right now. One is some form of short form presentation that you can take to these major funders. Whoever funded the last design shop, say it was a huge success, here's where we're going with it. So you need something for that. Then we also need this type of video. Maybe this does it, but I think you need more than just this if you're approaching a foundation, right?
Oh, you can or can't. I mean, you can also do it by who comes and how you talk about it and how you've written it up.
Well,
Can you mix this with video, pictures, photos?
Yeah, I mean, this is a short teaser, so this was done for like, I think it was International Women's Day, so it was an event, right? So they were similar to Kickstarter or something else, or any fundraising campaign. It was a time-based event. So that was the purpose, and then it had the dual purpose of being something that they could show for their other funders and
Right.
fundraising efforts.
I just see some power for local funders, as well as people who would be considering their own interest in doing it, to see who else is involved, to see what the process itself looked like. We've got great images from some of that stuff, to get to the specifics.
And I'm trying to get in the mind of a funder though. Like what a foundation wants to know impact. They have, usually have a category or a demographic or a zone of operation, be it water, environment, education, transportation.
Outcomes based.
Yeah, and so I used to live in Pittsburgh, which was crazy because they had, for a small city under 1 million people, they had 8 major foundations, like these giant robber baron foundations, the Rockefellers, the Mellons, the Alcoa, and they were in a process of, foundations have to spend 5% of their endowment per year by like mandate. And so there was all this criticism because they would just like throw money on different things, and then when the recession hit, they had to show impact. So I don't know like what local.
It depends on the foundation level.
Well, it sounds
It's
like
about personal relationships to a large degree.
Yeah, and Nashville's nowhere near as, I mean, Nashville's got more nonprofits and fewer foundations than just about any city of its size.
Right.
So it's a much more competitive
So what did you do to raise money for the design shop?
I spent my working capital.
Yeah, you're
I
looking
bet
at
the farm. That's what I did.
The way to get money to foundations in this town for this project would be that a small group of people who we know will be influential just in who they are and what they represent in this city goes around, knocks on those doors, and says, this is important, this is how we started, we want to move from 40 people to 1,000 in the next year and a half, and in order to do that, we need to hold 3 design shops. We're going to start with an event to invite people to expose the idea. We've got a plan to create a series of X number of short presentations that we're going to use to attract people, and I think then you try to figure that out.
Well, and I think that's exactly right, but it's not just foundations, it's businesses too. and the chamber or the other groups that are, all of their, I think, unless you're talking about somebody like NOAA. NOAA is a group that we need just because they're already acting in this space, not because they're gonna fund us. But a business could fund us and have interest in whether we get this transportation thing figured out or not. The chamber could potentially fund us and have interest in our, so it's, we've got to
Yes.
reach the right people.
City government.
Once you get the
Yeah.
group together in the presentation, you take that dog and pony anywhere you want to. Absolutely.
So we've got a fundraising team that we need, a presentation team that we need.
So I can help with the presentation, but the fundraising mechanism, and that's out of my scope.
And we don't have to assign the fundraising right now. I mean, I think we'll need people who already contact foundations on a regular basis. We need them, like Renata Soto needs to be part of that fundraising team.
Yeah, I don't think it's important that they contact their phones with them, but the people who will make a difference if they show up in that person's office because of who they represent. Somebody in the entrepreneurial space is
Yeah.
going to be important. Somebody in the nonprofit space will be important. It's going to be about the power of the people they know that are involved and their belief that these people will make this happen. This is not just another group that's going to hang out. And it's going to be that energy that sells them on it. And a lot of them are going to say no because it just doesn't fit in the mission of their foundation, or the business interests are not served by it, or whatever. Others will jump on it because of what they feel can happen to it. And again, it's about saying we want you to be part of it because it's about to emerge. It's an emerging entity and energy. It's not something that exists yet. And from that, you make a couple of those meetings, you're going to find out whether the interest is there or not. Because you can pick a couple of foundations that are generally going to show you, all right, we're going to run into this wherever we go. They'll have some questions that we don't have answers to yet. They'll tell you what they need in order to proceed. Does it fit in their interest area? And then there may be individuals, Carter, that you know that are behind leadership. I mean, yeah, the leadership lodge that we make a presentation to as well. We may not want to outnumber them 10 to 1, overwhelm them, but I think that the same theory, I think, still applies.
Yeah.
And somebody can articulate that for them.
What's the value to you all being a part of this?
Personally or in the group?
Who wants to go first?
I mean, I have a vested interest in all of it collectively, so it's hard for me when we think about like the different arms of the organization that we've articulated, the think tank part versus the action part. I would want to straddle those. I'm in it for everybody though that's involved, like every facet of it fascinated me. Obviously my expertise would be with mental health and education.
And is this serving something that you see isn't being served?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To me, it's, I like seeing real change happening. I don't like squabbling over limited resources, followed by more squabbling over more limited resources. But like, it's like a rat on its little, a hamster on its little wheel. And I feel like that's what we do around issues, big issues. And then on this, so we do that when it comes to nonprofits and government funding and things like that. But then we've got these other people over here who are innovators. They're on their wheel too. And I like this because I think it's a good format, a very strategic format for getting those two groups to get off their little wheels and start talking about how they can create a new wheel together. That's my motivating factor behind all this. Breaking out of the whole grasping for resources thing and into the how do we create resources. There will be some part of it that is government funding, there will be some part of it that's nonprofit funding, but how do we bring all those for-profit, sustainable stuff to the table as well? That's what excites me. Because I think because the reason government is somewhat effective is because it's a structured form of collaboration. It's a design form of organized collaboration. And I think if we can provide some semblance of that outside of a tax base, outside of something that depends on a tax base, I think you can get to a more broader, sustainable, better plan to make some changes, wholesale changes. So it's the tackling complexity. That's my motivation.
Here.
Anybody else want to share?
Well, I think it's just that, was it originally an Einstein quote or something? You can't get out of a problem with the same kind of thinking that got you into it. We're so at that place right now. We're in a good spot from a lot of definitions or a lot of perspectives, but the problems are becoming more visible to the wider community every day. They've always been visible to certain segments of the community, and none of them are insurmountable, but the kind of thinking that got us to this point isn't what will solve those problems. To your point, we can't just tax our way out of them. We can't just regulate our way out of them. We can't just create more nonprofits our way out of them. It's going to take a different kind of vision of our future, and I think it's possible. And I think the communities in the city that were represented at Future Ready Nashville, that are represented in a lot of these other movements we've been talking about, are an incredible resource that you shouldn't just assume happen in every city, because I don't think they do. They may happen other places, but I think there are some unique things about the culture of leadership in the city that we can take advantage of and demonstrate a new way to move forward and solve these kind of problems. I drank the Kool-Aid.
I know, that's once you do these design shops, it like infiltrates you and you can't shake it.
To me, real community change happens either because there is a dynamic single leader that generates enough energy for that to happen, be it a revolution or a great populist leader. I think the other way it happens is that people just, generally it's negative, people get so damn fed up that something changes, and it's a pretty, it's grassroots, but even if it stops short of violence, it's based out of frustration and based out of negative energies that just have to go somewhere, because it's eventually going to explode one way or the other. And I see this as an opportunity to stave some of that off by using the energy that comes from entrepreneurial frustration, where we want ideas to rise to the top. And the fact that it was initially pitched as an activist gathering. Activist carries certain connotations and certain realities to it that do not end up in the mainstream of politics, don't end up showing up always in those traditional ways of that change happens in a town like Nashville, which is still a fairly small town, although it's a lot in terms of its mentality. That's changing a lot because so many people have come in. And then when you saw the people that were there, it seemed like there would have been another 200 if they'd known what it was going to be, if they had had the opportunity. But the reality did happen. Started with 40, we had 12, now we've got 6. So the notion is that schedules are going to be tough to keep. People have got real lives to deal with, and you've got to generate such numbers to get things moving. And I think it's going to be hard to differentiate a lot from NOAA and some of these other organizations. It's just, is NOAA going to get it all done? Just NOAA? Because they're not all bound together by anything right now. And I think if we've got a group that says, you know what, it doesn't matter. We're going to get something done. We're going to change the thought process. We're going to change the approach. And once we get going, if anybody wants to join inclusive urbanization, and you want to adopt that as your own, that's it. It's like open source. And I think that's the notion of what we're trying to do. Something that is transparent open source, yet has power that ultimately we would hope you can't resist. I mean, at some point, can commercial developers keep doing what they're doing? At some point, no. People are going to start protesting, or something's going to stop it one way or the other. And they have a choice now to do it on their own, to make it really positive, to make themselves feel like heroes. And if not, eventually people are just going to, somebody will stop. Because there won't be any left. And I think education clearly is on a huge agenda for everybody. Something's going to happen. So, I'll stop.
It was great.
Yeah.
I'm sorry we didn't record it.
I know, I was thinking the same thing.
That's recorded.
It is?
Oh,
We
excellent.
need a transcript of what everybody just said. It's perfect. Well, I was talking to Marcus. Hi, Marcus. And we were agreeing that one of the best things that came out of the design shop is everybody actually enjoys working with each other. Like when we run into each other on the street at different functions, there's electricity. It's not like this, you know. It's like, hey! So I think that should be included. And maybe a core principle is that when we get together, we do some collaborative work and some fun stuff. In the snowstorm.
We ate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Food is always good.
Yeah, it's the presentation.
Yeah.
Broke out the market board, things like that.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about our diversity. I think that is important.
Or what?
Our diversity.
Yes.
Oh. I think that's why, look, just take the pictures that Carter's got. Pictures are very effective. You see human beings that are they're out there working. They're quiet leaders. There were some people who were not, former heads of corporate offices and things, but, and you see it, that's going to look as much like a cross-section of Nashville as any of these groups we've been described. But I don't know if any of y'all were at that Sunday that Noah did. And that was electric. That was as exciting an event as I've been to in, I can't tell you how long in this town.
In years.
Yes, and it
Yeah,
was.
how so? What did they do there?
It had a bit of church gospel to it that certainly would get your blood going. But it was packed like a basketball game with all, in the 60s with people hanging off the rafters. I mean, it felt like, a big high school game. There were all the local pressures on it. And it was not about inviting the mayoral candidates to do anything. It was telling them what they got to do. You say yes, we'll let you speak. You say no, you don't get a chance to speak. And some of it was very low-tech, amateurish, full of passion, little skits. I mean, it just involved so much stuff. And you knew that next door there were another 700 people that couldn't get in the room you were in. So they were watching it via a feed, and people were screaming. So it was a huge preaching to the choir kind of thing.
But what I loved about it, I told Ashford last time when we met here, I was so worried when they got up to do the skit for the criminal justice thing, because I thought, oh my gosh, this is gonna bomb. What are they doing? It was the best storytelling that happened all day, and it was an afternoon full of amazing storytelling. Because it just made that they were, saying basically what happens to you if you're a young man of color and you get arrested, and the system is basically formed against you before you ever, show up. And here are all the downstream things. Well, it was just so authentic and so real, and you couldn't have told that story with a flashy presentation or, this was the way to tell that story, looking at a kid. Literally a kid up there on the stage going, oh my gosh, he was 12 years old and his life was ruined. That's what happened. And you could imagine a white kid making the same mistake and there were no consequences. And so there was just something, there was just something so authentic about the whole thing.
Absolutely. Very charming and very electrifying at the same time. But it was, I think what it awakened in everybody there, you kind of went, damn, there's 1,000 people in here. As if everybody thought, wonder if anybody will show up. When we drove up there, we thought, boy, something must be going on Jefferson Street. And you know what, it was that
It was
event.
that.
Because you could not, we had to park blocks away. You know, so it was one of those, you feel alone until you go to the support group and you realize, oh shit, other people feel the same thing.
That's crazy.
I'm feeling so much better. And it had that kind of feel to it. And I think that's not something that this will recreate. This is a different kind of energy, but can't exist without that.
I feel like this is much more cerebral in nature, you know? It's much more like, hey, let's get these people to talk to these people and think outside the box.
But you know what I think is so magic about this is.
I'm not saying that's not.
No, you're right. I think you're right, but I think one of the magic things about this is, for most of us, the idea that this is even possible to be intentional about this sort of thing has never entered our minds. Because most places in the world, people aren't intentional about it. It just happens. Things happen and they work out or they don't, and if they work out badly, then we'll do something about it. But this is kind of audacious, the idea that we're going to be intentional about making sure that we go down the right path together. And we're gonna, we're all gonna hold hands and go together. That's crazy.
We didn't have permission from MDHA to talk about this stuff, we had somebody there from the MPO, but
Right.
It's not. They did not want it to happen either. But it's like it doesn't matter what they think. There are citizens who actually want to talk about it. If we want to do something about it, we may need your help. But the ideas are arising without them saying, "I come to a meeting on the 5th in the MDHA. I'll hear your story." Just that process is like.
Well, it's important to do that,
Glacier
right?
speed.
Yeah,
You just feel like, oh my God.
it's important to do that. I have seen real change happen that way.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're talking about.
No.
That needs to continue as it does, but this is,
We're talking about designing a
Going
better
to a
process
different
for
level.
making changes. It's a better process for making changes. It's
For
more.
people who generally don't pitch in or partake in that at all, why would you go down and do
Yeah.
that? I mean, it's such a small number of people who make appearances there and are part of that long, drawn-out governmental process, as opposed to feeling like you can show up somewhere else and kind of be who you are and see that other people are that way. That part was really great about this too.
So, we said we'd do this for an hour. We're at an hour. So what are we doing? Can you guys start working on concepts for a visual presentation to engage people in the process? And then
If we can decide on something to ask people to do.
Yeah, I would like to brainstorm an event.
So is it an event or is it fundraising or a
I
fundraising
think
event?
at the event, there will be some fundraising.
Yeah, I think it's 4 tracks there. So one is just developing a common PowerPoint presentation that everybody can have and do what they want to with. Another one is thinking through perhaps a tiny 30 to 90 second viral video type thing. It's like, here's awesome Nashville, it's growing like crazy. All these problems or all these opportunities are also challenges. Here's why we gathered these people. Here's what came out of it, inclusive urbanization. Or be part of this, or whatever the call to action is. Fundraising is another track, like what are we fundraising for, and then some sort of event, because events are great because you can do PR around it, you have people show up, you have a concrete kind of thing, as opposed to, we want to keep this going, ...
Yeah.
And so you may want to consider with your busy schedule at the space, when a particular time on the calendar might be that you want to have an event.
Oh, we can make it happen. Okay.
Well, I know you're in high wedding season.
Yeah.
Saturday nights might be taken.
We could expand somebody's wedding.
This gets first dibs.
So then we're talking about a fundraising event, which invitations leading up to it and fundraising leading up to it at the Leadership Lodge, and getting a guest list together, or an invite list names of people that we would want to participate in it in future design shops?
Well, let me ask this before you finish that. I'm sorry to interrupt, but do we want a fundraising event, or do we want a video, animation video, whatever the thing is, that we can share with people in personal meetings for larger fundraising, plus use at an event that is more about fundraising?
Yes.
I like that.
That's what I think.
Friend
I think so
raising, I like
too.
it.
I think what we should be doing is getting people to come to an event, and the focus is not fundraising. The focus is what this thing is. Doesn't mean you exclude potential fundraisers, but right now, the funders have nothing to fund.
Exactly.
We have to build a resume. Right now, we have a one-line resume. That's the event we did in December and a couple of follow-up meetings. We've got to have, now the second event, once that's happened, you say we went from 40, the second event we had, there were 120. The next, and then we have to justify that this has some legs and some momentum. Them being there to witness it is great, but you don't ask them for money at that event. We're here for the long run, because they're not going to show up and say, you all did one event, we love you, here's $50,000. It's not going to happen. So getting them there, and I think if you're sharing this with whoever we're sharing it with, real grassroots or whatever, you're sharing it to say, I did this, I loved it, I want you to come too, and we're going to have an event on May 17th. And it's going to be really, we're going to go through all this, plus we're going to really talk about some of the things that came out of the first one. We want your energy because blah, blah, blah.
We already have the tracks. We already have the areas.
Yeah, the work groups are already kind of formed. And it doesn't mean there's not a place for more. And there can be a forum for that. And then we got to structure that event. So even if it doesn't actually become a design shop, there's some little things in there that are going to be like a design shop. There is a 10-minute period where you're doing something and you get together and you have nodes and introduce some of the concepts. But our real idea is let's communicate this and get them fired up about how they want their voice to be heard. This is so cool, I didn't know you were here. Oh, God, we got it, Florida. Just all of that. Then we've accomplished something we can't do with videos, which is get them in a room and get personal excitement. So we got to change it by a factor of 2 to 4 from December to whenever we do this.
It's both. It's just like a startup. You've got chicken and egg, and what comes first? And
Yes.
you raise funds, you raise friends, customers, clients, like how do you... So I think if I'm on board with doing a big event like that, I think in the meantime, whoever you told you'd be following up in the spring, that's a method for recording them. And if you're ready to go to them with an idea and you think you can get funding for an idea, then we go ahead and do that. But I just want to be able to support what you think, because I don't know the conversations you have with those other foundations.
Well, I think the pitch is that we want to do more design shops, and they work beautifully.
But do you have enough now to go and make that pitch, or do we need to have?
Design shops are an activity.
Yeah.
So the pitch has to be the outcome that's enabled by doing the activity.
I think if it's a group of us who go and have a good, understandable explanation of what it is, that's so much more than it was just Carter.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the meeting is the message. It's the people who are there and being pretty well prepared.
Well, and I think there are a couple of specific next steps we can point to. It seemed to me like the civic engagement group is ready to bring more people in and start taking some action, and maybe a design shop is a good next step for them. I think we could very quickly get the healthy living people up to that same place, and there are other people in this community already working on that we need in our conversation, so that we're all saying the same thing. So I think there are several things. Affordable housing is trickier to me because there's so many other people working on that, but those folks might have some ideas. So I think by the time of an event, we could be ready to stand up and say, here are 3 next steps that we want to take, and, you know, come go with us. Either sign up for one of the design shops and the thing you care about, or, you know, help us figure out how to keep funding this effort, and help us talk to more people who need to know. And so we can give people a call to action.
As part of that, and this open source mentality, is what if we were able to train a couple of people in order to teach them how to do the take a panel, share a panel, report out with whatever group they're working with before that big event. And what I'm thinking back to is a project that I did in which a city wanted to fund small arts and community related projects under $10,000. They wanted to generate a lot of ideas of what was possible, bring in the same demographic in the same areas. And what we did is we trained pairs of facilitator and a graphic facilitator, which is just somebody who could write things down, on how to do that. And we ran in parallel quick 2-hour brainstorming sessions, but using the same principles of a design shop, even if it wasn't a design shop, through a classroom, gymnasium. But I think in order for real change to happen, sharing the idea, the concepts, and the methodology is very powerful. So perhaps part of the May event is getting people, like that's also part of the pitch, is come and learn this quick methodology. As part of that, you agree to go back to your group and run a 2-hour workshop or whatever it is in order to gather input for the next session. So it's thinking about this as continuous design shops instead of the next design shop.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to, what really is hard is when you go off and you get trained with something and then you go back to your organization and you like flapping your gums and using language, people are like, yeah, it's nice you got that. What's powerful is if you go with a group, like even a small group of 2 or 3 other teachers or co-workers, and then you all come back with that same language and experience. Mm-hmm. So I went out to Facebook and they had social impact groups that they brought there for this special day, but they required them to send 2 people from their organization. They couldn't come solo. So that they went back as a pair and they had a language with them. And these were incredible activists. So there was the guy who started the Egyptian revolution in the Arab Spring with his Facebook page. He was a Google engineer who was in Cairo and said, you know, on this date we're all going to meet at Tahrir Square on his Facebook page, and they all showed up. I mean, that's the kind of quality of people that were there. And even they are, you know, they're struggling with these same issues, but when they shared the methodology with somebody else in their organization. So,
You know, one of the things that seems interesting about this is that there is kind of a self-selection process. You made some selections about who you were going to invite or not. So are we trying to start a grassroots movement, or are we trying to gather the right types of people who can really burst this through the low clouds and come up with these ideas that rise above others?
I think it's both, is what it sounds like.
So having the right people, having the right mix is really important.
Right. A think tank to me, even if it's an open source kind of idea, doesn't feel like that's something that's good for 1,000 people. It's a little smaller than that. And the work groups and the way those things operate could take on as many people as they want to.
It happens when there's a credible messenger that can speak the language of the population that they're from. And so for a think tank or something that's curated, you have to select that credible messenger so that they can translate what the future national or whatever group explored together and translate it into something that connects with people back home. And so that's the curating part where it's very selective. The other part is exposing as many people as possible to a methodology for brainstorming, decision-making, being very open and creative as opposed to sitting like this and going through bullet points and voting and things like that. So it's...
Do you see the design shop being like that?
Being like what? Open?
Well, this kind of moving that, sharing the methodology, getting a methodology that's shared by the people, or however
I'm just saying
you
if you
express
want
that.
change to filter out.
Yeah.
It's
So hard to know. It's emergent. I don't want to cut off anything that, that could come prematurely. The big design shop is sort of a big iron, highly expensive, thoroughly produced, and probably pretty doggone selective about how you get and who you get there. That doesn't mean that that isn't the only way that we can move
So
forward.
going back to the startup thing, you need early adopters, right?
Yeah.
So who are our early adopters?
And we can do the redesign in the future, rebuilding the future course that Matt wants to do is another thing to
I think
bring people around.
Our early adopters are people who are very similar to the ones who showed up at the original one, which are activists who by default are sort of leaders in the community, which is not a widely dispersed group. It's more it's a tighter group. And I think you eventually want it to become much more broad than that. But at the early stage, you need early adopters. And the most likely early adopters, I think, are going to be people who are already very active. And our role is to simply, just like we did, get them in a room around specific issues. So to me, if we do a friend-raising event, it's around potential early adopters who could both fund and participate in something like this.
Maybe the notion that you're talking about, Peter, occurs at a point where maybe we're ready to do that, and there is maybe even some help from Matt or somebody to, get him to say, okay, if this is what we want now, to move this methodology out, then you help us design that, so that it's not all that intense. Yet the think tank itself idea might always be around a more selected group of people, because you can't have, let's say, even hundreds. But does he do it in hundreds?
It's theoretically possible. The lodge is probably max out at 125 or something like that.
But the idea of the early adopters, that's probably who our target should be for the event. The people that...
To me, it's activists. To me, that's activists.
So
what we're promising is a new way of collaborating. That's what I think.
Yeah. And so do you try to go straight to all the funders, raise the money, run the next design shop, and have that be the next event? Or do you have
I'd say you do the event. I think that Laura's right in the sense that we've already gotten the first 4 design shops.
But we don't have the money for it.
Right, but in terms of the work areas, the enthusiasm for inclusive urbanization, for the health issue, for the civic engagement, and for education, there are at least 4 of them that have got people and ideas that need more time to incubate and figure it out and expand and see who else is interested and how do they join with other groups that are working in those areas. And if you wanted to target funders to understand what we're trying to do, it seems like that might be it. We need to fund 4 design shops around the 4 work areas that have emerged now.
Right.
And we took our original group from 40 and moved it to 120, and now we want to get these design shops and invite others to see how it works.
And perhaps what we could say is, as soon as we've got something ready, we could start sharing that with potential funders. But then perhaps this event is a fundraising specifically targeted people who will either care about the work overall and want to be part of it, or who might have a specific interest in one of those areas where we could say, we really want you here because we want you to hear what's going on about health or civic engagement or whatever, and there's a way you can be a part of it. Here's what we're trying to do. You need to come hear about it. And then hopefully that leads to both funding and a design workshop around those areas.
And you don't have to necessarily give away a design shop. There might be a model where people actually pay to come and participate.
I also think there should be potluck, by the way. The southern
Good idea.
tradition of, forget a caterer, it's too expensive, who cares? If I bring a dish for 5 people and I'm in the letter A to L group and you're
Yeah.
supposed to bring the salads, I mean, you know, it
I love potlucks.
harkens back to another way that community interacts and, oh, I love that recipe, I want that
Right.
recipe. It just,
Right?
Yeah.
there's something about that as opposed to,
Yeah.
going over the window and I think something
That
like
was
that.
90 degrees.
I mean, Mac, that could really be an intentional part of sharing your own story and building your relationships at the event. There's something kind of beautiful about
Surprised that didn't
it. It is a Southern potluck thing.
Oh,
So
yeah.
are you good with that? With
Absolutely.
an event at your place?
I'm fine with an event at my place.
Okay.
At our place.
The other thing, it seems to me like we have to recapture everybody who we've lost. And it seems like, let's pick a number. Is it 25? Is it 15? And we need everybody to take whatever it is, the presentation that we create, the invitation to this event, and everybody's got to forward it with a personal invite to 10, 15 people.
Yeah.
Something that's doable so you don't quit halfway through. You feel, oh gosh, I only sent it to 4, I'm supposed to do 8, whatever. Something that's manageable, because we've all got lists, we know people, and to me, it's like it's going to self-select itself by the fact that if we want to replicate who we are, let's let us go out and invite more and challenge ourselves to think about who we think might be great in this arena.
That's really how we got the group there, is we took 5 or 6 activists and said, go invite people, yeah.
Right. Well, you got here because of Renata.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we have the next 4 design shops, just 5, but set a date and a theme. However, by whatever means necessary, in order to start building energy around that for funders, invitations.
Yeah. I do have to get some funding.
Yeah, you can't commit too much.
Yeah, without that.
But as we said earlier, funders need something to fund. So if you have
Yeah,
the theme, the event,
they can choose, yeah. When we get enough to launch, we launch.
Can you go ahead and start working on a budget for, taking a look at what you did before and then
Yeah.
reimagining that either at whatever scale you need to do it. But I would imagine about the same number of people around each different topic.
Over 40 or 50 around each topic.
Well, if we can generate the right number of people to get to that event, we'll populate those design shops pretty quickly.
Well, and even then, let's say we get 5 people per future design shop, so a total of 25 new. You're going to have several from the last one that will also recommit to a new one. And then you'll have all those people start asking for other people to come join, so you'll get the tentacles out there.
Something that's, the number's pretty dramatic, because the math's not gonna work out for us anyway, schedules and.
I said 5, I wrote 5 to 10 down for myself.
5 to 10 what?
Ask the people that invite.
Oh, yeah, I'd say 10. I'd throw 10 out there.
So how far up are we looking?
You guys are saying May.
What's that?
For this event, you guys are saying May.
he's got graduations all through it.
Is summer even a good time to do it? Doesn't matter really.
There's no good time, there's no bad
If
time.
we all came the week before Christmas, I mean,
Yeah,
what
what
kind
was
of
insane?
crazy are we?
That was insane.
A lot of people
What
thought
were you
this was
thinking?
great, I couldn't have made it in New York time of year, and a lot of people, that was insane.
I think we
What
could
do you
do
think?
the first 2 weeks of May. I think we could do end of April, but,
I think you're optimistic about everything, and that's part of what I love
Yes.
about you. I was thinking first couple weeks of June, but part of what I would like to have, I would like Carter and whoever else can participate to have enough time to have a few of the potential funder conversations before that. And so I think before we can do that, we need to have some kind of presentation ready so that, if they want to share it with, whether or not that's part of the conversation with them, at least we've then got something to show, something tangible to show for what we've done. So I think it depends on how fast we can get a presentation.
Even if it's just for the sake of feedback, just to get feedback from funders about, hey, here's what we'd be looking for, and
It's very simple.
yeah.
What was going on that inspired this? What happened during the design shop? What's the outcome? What are our intentions? And to ask.
How do you want to move forward with that? I mean, you'd be the ringleader on the fundraising piece of it, so.
Yeah, I think if we do if we can't put together a quick presentation, then that's a great start. I always think about script. If you get a good script, then the rest of it kind of flows from there. We've got some great script writers, so. Are you stuck, Mac, on we don't have the right ask if we're trying to go to? You said, let's not do it for.
My philosophy is you only get one shot, and you don't want to make it prematurely. You don't want to be caught unprepared, even unintentionally.
Right.
And I think that engaging a funder to just join us at this event will say a lot more than us trying to articulate something that's not quite ready between now and then. I think then, after it's over, you have something to talk about. You go back a week, 2 weeks later, and you say, unbelievable, wasn't it? The people that showed up, the energy that was there. And here's the plans that have now emerged that we feel really good about. And for these events, we think each of them costs this. It just feels like it's a natural outgrowth, that we're a prime pump,
I was just looking out for my buddy Carter. Since he funded the last one, that would be asking him to fund this next one.
Well,
can we do that in Monday?
a meeting with, a meeting's not a problem.
Oh, I thought you were talking about a whole design shop.
No.
Okay.
Fundraising event.
Fundraising, yeah.
I do think it might be worthwhile for us to arrange the event when Matt can be there.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So that there is and he can decide what he wants to do, and we give him X. Or if he wants to organize some stuff, that little things we go through, fine. But I think it's no design shop, no knowledge workers, none of that.
Well, a way to do it is a discovery session where you invite funders and take them through the presentation and have them have the experience.
So in 6 hours, you can do a lot. You can sort of do a mini design shop or discovery day. No.
And you can even do it in 3.
But getting people,
3 hours?
you're trying to friend raise, so getting friends to show up for 6 hours is
Can't do that.
tough.
I don't think.
Half
it's
day is
3
more
hours.
doable, but.
First of all, people are on the road for 45 minutes to an hour getting to Camp Ridgeway.
All right.
That right there is a pain in the ass to a lot of people. So let's count that as the time they're doing this event. Because it'll feel that way.
Yep.
Depending on the day, the traffic, the weather, it was all that stuff. What'd you say?
Picking up the girls, and taking home afterwards. That really added.
Yeah, if you do it in June, then you get a bunch of campers running around.
Just going. When does the first session of camp
I
start?
don't know. Probably June 12th or something like that.
We definitely gotta find that out.
Because you want to hit it or don't hit it.
No, I would rather not.
Yeah.
But there's no school traffic then either, so that's not
Yeah,
It was over your ear.
Yeah, you just don't show up and leave at the same time the campers are. It's okay
Right.
for campers to be there as long as you're.
I feel like we need to have some sense of urgency to keep this going though. So I don't know if I want to wait till June. I think that's why I'm saying let's keep the pressure on and do it at the end of April or early May. and use that as our target to try to pull something great together.
Like it. Freaks me out.
I don't know how long it takes to make a video or anything like that, so I'm kind of just speaking of.
Who knows?
What's that?
Who knows?
It can go very fast if people are focused.
Yes,
Very
that's
take
where
very
the
long.
sense of urgency
Let's all
comes in.
focus.
Why don't you look at your calendar, the lodge's calendar,
Okay.
and
Look at late April. What day of the week do you think it should be?
Yeah, that's a good shot.
Thursday.
So,
Saturday? Dare you interrupt someone's
No.
weekend?
Saturday, you won't get anybody there.
so 3 hours is a big chunk, so it almost has to be 2 hours.
6 to 8.
I
Or
said
you
six.
could do 4 to 6.
Nobody
You gotta-
can get there by 4.
You gotta get in front of or after traffic.
That's true, yeah.
People will arrive late, frustrated, pissed off.
6 to 8
You're
sometimes.
headed out, you're headed across town at 5
If you
o'clock
want to get
traffic.
passionate about transportation, though.
Yeah.
You're damn right.
6:30 to 8:30?
There's still gonna be, the problem with the evening is, unless we start as late as 7, people are going to be leaving town in rush hour. It's one of the worst rush hour nights.
And you're anti-Saturday,
You lose a lot of people, I think.
So what about noon to 2?
Yeah,
Yeah?
I think that
People
would be
just-
great.
You
Duck
must
out
rush
of
hour
work.
both ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that'd be a good solution.
Yeah. Or 11:30 to 1:30, we could be.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
That sounds like lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's brown bag.
Potluck or, we worked that out.
I think if you do lunch, people are going to expect to have lunch ready for them.
Yeah, which is also tough, you know, people eating, food, nobody lost all that hour.
Well, the tradition is we work through lunch.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
you show up, there's an introduction, you do a working lunch, you have a mini report out. The power is to take them through one round of work in which there's scan, focus, act, and then to give them a deliverable at the end. So that either that night they get a link to a web page, or they walk out with something in their hands with photographs and pictures of scribing, and that demonstrates the power of the environment and the methodology.
What about 9:30 to 11:30?
Huh.
What is rush hour like going out there? I mean, can we do it first thing in the morning because rush hour's not too bad
It's
to
not
go
too
to a
bad.
lodge?
It's not bad at all going out.
Because then they could be back at the office by lunchtime.
7:30 to 9:30.
You can do lunch.
Do lunch?
Bagels are cheap.
I think lunch is a good idea.
Yeah.
11:30
a
to
little bit of
1:30.
a lunch and learn.
And can we get enough done in 2 hours to have enough information to get them to then be the core of the 4 design shops that we want to follow?
I'm still unclear as to what the output from this friend raising is, but the answer is yes. If you can do it in 2 hours. 3 hours would be better, but 2 hours you can do it. But it has to be, the purpose is to model the behavior while injecting content as well, and having them do the work so that afterwards they've been a part of the design. And then that brings them into this whole network.
I feel like that's
What does
the
that
only way
fix
to-
me?
I think there's other ways to invest in them. I feel like if,
It's tough. 2 hours is not enough to do that. You go beyond 2 hours and you got the weekend. You get the weekend, you lose people. So it feels like there's a catch-22.
Who are you talking to? Who's he talking to? Who's he talking to?
Bankers.
No, who's he talking to right now?
Oh, I didn't see him talking to you.
No, you were just talking. So I was responding.
So,
or you brought this from
And the reason I'm like throwing that down, I ran one of these centers, and this is what we had to do all the time as sales thing. We have 2 hours, come in, run people through a miniature round of work. It's not a design shop. And more happens in those 2 hours doing it that way than happens in 2 hours of sitting and talking and presenting. And they leave, and so they have a shared experience, just like you guys did, of like, what's going on here? What are we doing? We're eating lunch, or we're thinking, and we're drawing, and what's happening? And then afterwards, when they see their report out, and it all comes together, and says, great, this is the output from this event, and here are the key decisions, what are our next steps? Then they go back, and they've had this experience, right? So for 2 hours, they left, they went out to the woods, they went to Leadership Lodge, totally disoriented, went through this little design shop experience, and then returned back going, I don't really understand what I just went through, but that was really pretty cool.
Do we get
So we have to
present-
figure out how to share what we've done so far, plus create an experience as part of that. So
Yeah.
another one of our next steps for our list probably needs to be planning that event. You know, what is an agenda? What are the things that we have to do? What are the things we have to give them? What are the things they're going to create that'll be new and different than what we've done?
Probably got 5 different breakouts, each taking one of the topics and going after it. All right, what about Thursday, April 23rd?
Sounds great.
Lunchtime?
Yeah, he said 11:30 to 1:30.
I can do it.
I'm available.
Me too.
Me too. Ding!
This would be the week of the 14th.
And how about, do you have a backup in case we discovered too much conflict on that day?
Yeah, let's see.
What did we say? If this is 11:30 to 1:30?
Yeah, 23rd. Okay, and then Friday the 24th. One of those two.
I think Thursday, 23rd.
Yeah, I don't think it's Friday, total price of the day.
What about first week of May?
First week in May. We could do it the second, let's see, Monday the 4th. Or the 6th, 7th, 8th.
Stick with the Thursday, with the 7th. Yeah.
May 7th, okay.
It's fine with me.
That's exciting.
What's the other one, May 7th? Same
Yep.
time?
Yep. And it sounds like we've got our
So,
reason for our next meeting.
so Peter, are you gonna come with a script? Do you wanna make the next draft of the script and then share it with everybody?
And I do think we need to start concepting a video. I mean, it sounds like we've got most of the concepts, we just need to.
Yeah, I think the script is the next step in the process. And, yeah, I've been thinking about, like Max said, being able to use some of your drawings from the design shop, the pictures of people at the design shop. Because we're inviting people to some experience.
I don't need that for a teaser, do we? The teaser should refer them to the Future Ready website where they'll find all that, or?
I think no matter what we do, it ought to be sent into the website, just because it's great stuff. I mean, teaser, I mean, it ought to be what it is, no teaser. We invite them to, unless you call that
So
a
it's an
teaser.
invitation.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's a video
I
invitation.
think it's, we want an outcome, we want an actual this.
Yep.
Say yes or no, this is really cool, please come, I'm inviting you, it's personally used by everybody.
Yep.
So you do it, you embed it on the, everybody gets the file, we embed it in the email that we're gonna send out and ask people,
Right.
keep track of it, and maybe some back office stuff that you all wanna do so we know actually who's been invited. We need that database.
Yeah.
That's right.
We may have stumbled on an earlier conversation.
Yes.
There was finger pointing.
That
Friendly
was part of the
finger
pain
pointing, but finger
of
pointing doesn't
the
look.
last event is I was like, where's the spreadsheet with everybody who participated in this event? He's like, I don't know, we got some emails. Somebody over here, and I had my computer at home.
Well, he's got one showing on the payroll now, so you know what, there you
It's
go.
a little tighter ship now, yeah.
Yeah.